Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmerced.com, and I want to talk a little bit about what free market healthcare would look like. We spent a lot of time talking about why non-free market healthcare doesn't work. So I've talked about in the past about, incentives. It's all about basically market things work because of incentives. Market prices allow there to be an incentive for people to not eat up everything. So for the fact that apples aren't free, I don't eat as many apples as I can. I eat as many apples as makes sense based on what I have to spend and what I need, in a sense, okay? Vice versa, it also creates an incentive for people to make apples, okay? So the higher the price of apples goes because people want more apples, so there's a profit incentive to invest in planting more apple seeds and make more apple trees, and that also incentivizes people to maybe eat less apples until there's enough for everybody. But when you get rid of those sort of market mechanisms, things fall apart, and that's what's happened in healthcare. You, the consumer, aren't the one paying. You have third-party payers, and whether they be your employers, whether they be an insurance company, whether they be a government, but the idea is that you're no longer in the control. Because of that, prices have run away. Because oftentimes what keeps prices under control is the fact that you choose what to pay. And the fact that if something gets too expensive, you can choose not to pay for it is what keeps prices under control, which makes people seek alternatives to keep prices under control and develop alternatives. This is what would happen in a market. Okay, but how would a free market look like for healthcare? The problem is, when you imagine this, people assume the prices for healthcare and healthcare services now is what's normal. That these would still be the same prices if we were free of the market. The problem is, there are all sorts of things that limit supply and increase demand by making it easier for more people to consume more and destroying the incentives for people to produce more, by making it hard to provide more healthcare, whether it be through licensing requirements, all sorts of certification requirements in order to build, and certificate of need laws to make it hard to build new hospitals, start a doctor's practice, and that discourage people from doing these things. So there's an artificial lack of supply. Or even in the development of new medicines, when we take a look at the way intellectual property laws are done right now, etc., that limit supply. If all of that was different, prices would be a lot lower. You could have not necessarily anyone, but anyone could become much easier a doctor. Okay? You'd still probably have mechanisms for certifying who's a quality doctor, who's not. I mean, even for things where there isn't a government licensing program, you go online and read reviews. Actually, you probably go online and read reviews for things that are less important to you more often than you'd read for the things that are important to you. A lot of times it's because we've come accustomed that the things that are the most important to us, the government's already done that due diligence for us. And it's really nominal. But are you really going to pay every expense out of pocket? Possible. More than likely, it still would be pretty difficult to afford, even at much, much, much lower prices. Like if you take a look at cash-only clinics where you pay for all the services in cash, they are at huge discounts. So it's not like it's hard to imagine a free market, because there are examples where we can kind of see what it would look like. There are cash-only clinics that charge sometimes 30, 50% less than what you would pay at a normal hospital through insurance, etc. And that's a lot cheaper, but still can be kind of expensive. Now, there's been models that deal with that, like direct primary care, where you pay a subscription. So you subscribe to a network of doctors, you pay a monthly fee, and that covers all your services within that. And that way, you don't have to necessarily schedule a meeting with your doctor every time. That exists now. You can see these sort of market-based alternatives already existing, and they do offer you much more affordable care. Problem is, direct primary care may not necessarily be able to provide you with that life-saving surgery that you may need, but that's why you would get a catastrophic health insurance plan for those sort of unforeseen risks. Okay? Now, of course, then there's the big elephant in the room, pre-existing conditions. How would that be handled? There's a variety of ways that can be handled. Now, if you had a market-based system where you could basically buy into sort of insurance policies much earlier in life, and then they're not tied to your employer, you might have bought catastrophic plans and plans to cover these unforeseen conditions earlier in life, so that way you had that coverage when you needed it later. Okay? What if it's something that you're born with? Okay, there might be charitable mechanisms to deal with that. There's always, in the past, when you didn't have sort of the system you have now, you had probably a lot more hospitals providing free care. So it just basically, it didn't cost you anything. It was just free. And there was actually still hospitals even before Obamacare that did that, where they would give you very subsidized care, or basically where the hospital pretty much forgave a lot of the costs, and you'd pay just sort of a nominal fee to manage usage. And the hospital would do that for very low-income people. Those programs got eliminated with the advent of Obamacare because everyone just assumed that Obamacare was going to pay now for everybody. So a lot of those programs that made care accessible already kind of disappeared. So a lot of this stuff had existed. It wasn't like it didn't exist before or doesn't exist now. It's just a lot less now, and prices are a lot less under control now to make those methods more accessible. Okay, so free market healthcare, again, is visible, so we can see it. Or you can take a look at industries where, there really is very little government intervention. You always hear people talk about like LASIK and veterinary care, where innovation goes up and costs go down constantly. Okay, I wish I could, get as affordable care as my pets can. And it's not just because they're being provided a lower quality of care. A lot of times, a lot of vets are providing them with a very high-end level of care. It's affordable just because it exists within a competitive market. There are insurance policies for your pets, but not everyone buys them. Most people pay per service. So there's incentives for veterinary clinics to figure out how to optimize and make it more affordable to you and provide it to you in a more convenient way and provide you more value so they can take care of your pets. Okay? But yes, there are times where things get really expensive. So again, if you're born with a pre-existing condition, so it's not like you had an opportunity to buy an insurance policy beforehand, but again, there might be charities that'll help subsidize an insurance plan for you, so you may still have to buy insurance, but it may be one subsidized by charitable organizations. There might be mutual aid organizations that are willing to allow a certain portion of patients with pre-existing conditions based on how many healthy people they have in their plan. There'll be different mechanisms. Doesn't have to be a one-size-fits-all policy, but the idea is that there'll be enough room, enough flexibility that people can design all these mechanisms. And many of these mechanisms we can see in existence today. And then they've been more prevalent in the past when we had that more flexibility. And some of them are becoming more prevalent because there is no other options, like direct primary care. It's the only way you can really escape a lot of the overbearing costs of our current healthcare regime. And then if we just got in the way of limiting supply, or out of the way of limiting supply, we'd also bring down costs that way. And then there's also the things that kind of drive our bad health decisions as far as our eating habits, and we can take a look at all the different ways we create weird distortions in the way in the food we produce through our subsidies, a lot of our farming programs that sometimes make certain foods much cheaper than they otherwise would be in a market, and sometimes make healthier foods more expensive than they otherwise would be in a more robust market. All those things are things that contribute. And in a free market, you might have better prices for food that would make healthier decisions. You might have a better ability to have more hospitals, more doctors, so that way care costs less because there's a higher supply, but also at the same time there's a higher quality of care because it's operating within a market. And then also because there's more market-based prices, we can learn to optimize where we need to, and then insure what we need to, and then develop charitable organizations to cover the difference. But that difference would be a lot smaller. That's the thing I think a lot of people always miss out on. That in a market context, the amount of people who need and can't provide for themselves shrinks because there's more opportunities for more, and there's more flexibility to develop affordable alternatives, or even unaffordable alternatives for those who want to pay more, and opportunities for people to subsidize others' costs voluntarily through charity at a much lower price point that they can help more people because you have more efficient use of resources. But again, it's hard to convince people of that because a lot of people only see what they see directly in front of them. It takes a lot to kind of see the unseen, and that's why opportunity costs and economics is such an important thing to learn. My name is Alex Merced from alexmerced.com. Have a great day and enjoy.